So we're going to look at how to answer an analytical narrative question. So let's break down what the question means. So writing a narrative account means you connect the events, and an account is kind of like a report, and it gives you key events. Okay, so you have to talk about multiple things. In this case, this is very specific about the Hungarian uprising in 1956, but normally it will give you a specific period to focus on about different events. It will always give you two things that you can talk about, but you also must include your own information. So the structure for this is cause, course, consequence. So almost think of it like a little horse. You've got the start of the event, you've got the actual event, and then you've got kind of the end result. So cause, so why it started, the course, kind of what happened during the kind of main event, and the consequence, well, what was the impact of this after. But you need to focus on events that are within the time frame. And because it's a narrative, you want to be able to show how those events connect. So you want to use linkage phrases such as this led to, as a result of, as a consequence of, and then so you can directly show that impact between and connection between events. So you're going to start with your cause. So what are the causes are there? How did this event begin? Okay, so in the case of the Hungarian uprising, what were the reasons that the Hungarians were unhappy? Your course is what is the main event that is being focused on in the question. So the question we looked at is the Hungarian uprising. So the course is going to be the uprising itself, what actually happens. How did their Hungarians' unhappiness lead to that uprising in itself? And the consequence is what was the result of this event, what was the impact. So how does the uprising lead to the next event, which would be the Soviet invasion. Okay, so think about the linkage words you can use. So because of this, since, therefore. So the causes of the Hungarian uprising, you've got the fact that it's a satellite state, so it's under complete control of the Soviet Union. You've got Rakoczy, who's kind of a hardline communist and doesn't allow any kind of freedom. You've got the impact of de-Stalinization, which Khrushchev puts into place in 1956, which basically suggests that things are going to be more liberal. And you've got the course of the event, so the uprising itself. Imre Nagy that takes power and offers a bit more freedom and lifts some restrictions. And then you've got the Soviet invasion. You could put in consequence, but I've sort of put it in course as well, because I think there's some bigger consequences you could write about, such as the repercussions of the invasion, and the limits of the West, how they don't get involved. Okay, those are the outline of the things you can include. You don't need to include absolutely everything, because then you'd be writing for ages. Just pick out the key point, as long as it's in chronological order. So we're going to go through an example together now, and I'll show you just exactly how we've structured it. So we're starting with the cause paragraph. So the Hungarian uprising begun with political and economic discontent. Hungary was a satellite state and thus had no autonomy. Raw materials were forcibly given to the USSR, meaning they faced economic hardship and low standards of living. They were also ruled by the hardline communist Rakoczy, who ran a regime of terror and brutality. This resulted in the Hungarians being extremely unhappy. However, the process of de-Stalinization, announced by Khrushchev in 1956, later provided the Hungarians with opportunity to express their unhappiness through protests and riots. This caused concern for the Soviet Union as they were going against Soviet rule. Now you'll see I have colour-coded the paragraph, so the event in detail is in blue, the impact is in red, and kind of the words I've used to show linking is in green. I should have highlighted begun as well. So all those phrases you're using, you're not just writing what happened, you're explaining the impact of it. So let's do our second paragraph. Again, colour-coded, so this is our course now. This led to the Soviet Union replacing Rakoczy with a new Prime Minister, Imre Nagy, a more liberal politician, in order to, so showing that connection there, and appease the Hungarians and stop the protests. They offered free speech and free elections. Nagy then proposed that Hungary would leave the Warsaw Pact. This would have given the Hungarians the autonomy they wanted. As a result of this, the Soviets launched an invasion of Hungary with Soviet tanks because the request to leave the Warsaw Pact was a threat to the stability of the Soviet Union. So showing that impact and that connection between events. So now that leads us onto our consequence, our final paragraph. So consequently, so that linking language, on the 4th of November, Khrushchev sent 200,000 Soviet troops and 6,000 tanks back into Hungary. This had a significant impact and led to the Hungarian rebels losing 20,000, and a further 200,000 fled the country and became political refugees. Nagy was executed, and the reforms that had been implemented were revoked. The West did not get involved as they were too busy with their own crisis in Suez. This made the West look like they had abandoned Hungary and had a significant impact on the satellite states, as they realised they could not even rely on the USA, the support of the USA. So we've showed the impact, we've gone into detail with the consequences, we've not gone into lots and lots of depth on the detail, we've focused on the analysis and the impact a little bit more because it's a narrative account. It's not a story of everything that happened, it's an account and a breakdown of how those events connect.